Our fourth spring banner is here. The Familial Festivities Banner features Easter-inspired outfits for Narcian, Est, Fae, and Duo Idunn Fae. Another seasonal banner, another seasonal duo hero. We'll be going over everyone's stats, skills, and playstyles with some build suggestions should you pull any of these units. Our 4-star focus unit this time is Spring Narcian. You can get him at 4-star and 5-star rarity, but getting him at 4 stars will not reset your pity rates. Now as a unit, Narcian is a lance flyer with 43 HP, 35 attack, 34 speed, 37 defense, and 18 resistance. Pretty interesting stat line. Narcian has a good amount of attack, speed, and defense at the cost of resistance. 37 defense is really solid for a lance flyer and is only behind Dravon and Altena. Narcian, however, is not super slow, so he can definitely play differently. He also has a defense super boon, so for those looking to merge him up, that could be a fun boon to use. If you don't plan on fighting mages or dragons, Narcian should be a good physical damage fighter. For old scales, he comes with Vengeance, still not a very good special in my opinion. For his B skill, Narcian has Chose Speed. He's not the fastest unit ever, so taking the enemy's fastest unit down a peg can even things out. For his weapon, Spring Narcian comes with an inheritable lance called the GILT Fork Plus. If unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants attack and defense +5 and neutralizes unit's penalties to attack and defense during combat. This is actually a very similar effect as the tier 4 bond skills, but instead of extra stat points, GILT Fork has a large activation range. Pretty easy to activate if you're playing more defensive, and honestly it's a solid seasonal weapon. You could say it's a lance with a better attack and defense bond effect. Since you have to stay near teammates, you may want to adopt an enemy phase playstyle, and in that regard, GILT Fork could be an alternative to the Vanguard Plus Lance or the Reprisal Lance Plus. In fact, it's sort of a combination of the two. Definitely not a bad weapon here. Narcian's second new skill is Lance Experience. Somehow this was never in the game before, but basically it just grants double XP to Lance allies. These skills are purely for training purposes, and personally I don't think the double XP skills are very necessary. We got double EXP weekends, blessings, and a ridiculous amount of free shards and crystals. Double SP is a lot more exciting to me. For builds and playstyles, Narcian is sort of similar to our recent free lance flyers Cormag and Heath. Those two are a bit more balanced since Narcian trades resistance for more defense. He'll be a good physical damage brawler, you just have to watch out for mages and dragons obviously. With good attack and defense, Narcian can definitely use the GILT Fork Plus well. You could go for a speed focused build since GILT Fork plows on extra attack and defense. You can utilize his innate Chose Speed with something like Steady Posture and the Darting Stance Circuit Heal for an enemy phase build that doesn't use Quick Riposte. You can also refine the GILT Fork for speed if you want. Now if you want to use Quick Riposte, which is totally fine, then instead we want more attack and defense. On this banner, Sturdy Stance 3 makes its appearance, so you could grab that for Narcian if you really want, and he gets Guard 2. There is also attack and defense bond if you don't mind being adjacent to an ally. For C skills, Attack Smoke and Even Defense Wave are great and easier to get a hold of. For specials, obviously we're going to want Bonfire or Ignis. Now if you want to make Narcian a more offensive unit, then he could be interesting. His attack and speed aren't insane, but are good enough, and unlike most offensive flyers, he has a ton of base defense which can keep him going. You could go for things like attack and speed solo, Swift Sparrow, Sturdy Blow, or Sturdy Impact if you want to shrug off physical damage. Desperation and Brazens are fine as well. Overall, Spring Narcian has some impressive stats for fighting other physical damage dealers. Of course, in today's game there are a ton of magical damage threats, so that is definitely a huge weak point. If you can avoid those, then Narcian can do good work, and he has an interesting spot among our sea of lance flyers. Our second spring hero is Est, quite possibly the most predictable seasonal unit since we got Spring Catria, then Spring Paula, and this year it's Est's turn. She's a blue mage flyer, so if you want Est, you're probably gonna find Narcian along the way. For stats, Est has 39 HP, 38 attack, 35 speed, 17 defense, and 26 resistance. Kind of similar to our normal form, Spring Est has very high base attack, tying for highest among flying mages, and of course she has an attack super boon as well. 35 speed also isn't that bad to go along with it. Est's defense stat takes a hit in exchange for her offensive power, so definitely keep her away from any archers. For old skills, Est comes with Moonbow, perfectly fine to keep. She also comes with Fury 4, a flat +4 to all stats in exchange for 8 recoil damage after every fight. Definitely a lot of fun to be had with this skill. Last, she also comes with Honed Flyers, perfect for any flyer emblem team, including teams with her sisters. For her unique weapon, Est comes with Eagle's Egg. This is a 14 might tome that grants plus the extra attack. With this weapon equipped, Est is then gonna have 55 attack. That's pretty good for a mage. Now if Est is within 2 spaces of an ally, she gets +5 to all stats and neutralizes penalties during combat. Basically, this is a superior version of the effect that Narcian's GILT Fork Plus has. Instead of only attack and defense, Eagle's Egg grants bonus stats to speed and res as well, and also neutralizes stat penalties to those stats as well. Pretty simple effect, and as a flying mage, Est should have a lot of opportunities to activate this weapon. She can fly over terrain or use the various flyer mobility skills to weave in between her teammates. We'll talk about this weapon more in a bit. Now, the one new type of skill on this banner is Chill Attack and Res 2, our first dual chill skill. At the start of the turn, inflict -5 attack and res on the foe on the enemy team with the highest attack plus res total through its next action. So unlike the regular chill skills, this one is going to be a little less predictable. It's not as specialized at debuffing because the enemy with the highest attack plus res total may not necessarily be the one you want to hit with attack or res debuffs. For example, if I use chill res, I know what's going to hit the target with the most resistance, and that can be a big help if I need my magic damage dealers to kill them. Regardless, this dual chill still has the same properties of any other chill skill. Every turn it's gonna hit someone on the enemy team, it's gonna be annoying, and -5 attack and res is great if you have mostly magic damage on the team. If you run a team that depends on debuffs, this is another tool you can use, but it may not be as great on its own. At the moment, I don't think there's a huge need to replace the regular chill skills, but I think these new variants are fine. Now let's talk about Eagle's Egg again and having it alongside Fury 4. If S activates this weapon with Fury 4, she gets +9 to all stats, and that equates to 64 attack, 44 speed, 26 defense, and 35 resistance. Pretty impressive stuff, but you do have to keep in mind that Est isn't really a tank. If you use Fury, her health is going to drop rapidly and she won't take physical damage hits very well. To me, Eagle's Egg with Fury 4 just ensures Est has a ton of power in her first round of combat. She also won't lose stats thanks to Eagle's Egg, and that should include Panic, where Est will neither lose nor gain stats. It's a good situation for chill attack and res as well, since Est can take less damage from the target hit, and she's going to deal more damage to them too. Now, one issue is that Est can't initiate far from her team, since she has to be near them for Eagle's Egg to proc. Because of this, I think you may instead want to use skills like aerobatics, flyer formation, or guidance to keep Est near somebody at all times. You can use these as sacred seals, which is nice since the one B skill that most Est will probably want is desperation. She has Fury 4 already, she is somewhat frail defensively, and obviously desperation plus brazen tag and speed is a go-to combo. While it works with Eagle's Egg, if you don't want to be tied down by the nearby ally requirement, Est can also just use a Blade Tome. Highest attack mage flyer with a Blade Tome and a buffing flyer comp seems pretty scary to me. Overall, Spring Est isn't doing anything too crazy besides bringing a ton of stats to the table. While buffing teams are always good to have, they are susceptible to panic. If that is an issue for you, Eagle's Egg can help since Est won't lose stats to the panic status. It does not stop panic from messing up your buffs, but it's better than going negative. With Eagle's Egg active, you can think of Est as having a consistent stat boost while also never losing any stats. Our third unit is Spring Fur. It may look like she has a carrot sword, but nope, apparently it's an axe. Fur is going to be an axe flyer with 39 HP, 35 attack, 41 speed, 28 defense, and 24 resistance. Very interesting stat line. Fast axe flyers are nearly non-existent, and 41 speed is insanely high for an axe unit in general. For reference, Anna had the highest base speed for an axe unit for 3 years before Valentine's Dual Alm and Silica finally topped that. What only took about a month, but Spring Fur has even more speed than that, making her our new fastest axe unit. Also with 41 speed with a speed super boon, she's actually our fastest new flyer as well. Crazy stuff. With 35 base attack, Fur is easily one of our most offensive flying units stat-wise, and she's gonna put both of those stats to good use. Honestly, I did not pay that much attention to Fur at first on the banner trailer, but I think she is actually the most interesting unit in terms of bringing something new to the game. For ult skills, Fur has Harsh Command Plus. Still hard to get, but a powerful upgrade to its base version. For her A skill, Fur has attack and speed solo, plus 6 attack and speed on top of her high base stats is gonna be great, and this skill has pretty much become the new Swiss Sparrow at this point. Last, Fur has Air Orders, which allows adjacent flyers to move next to any ally within 2 spaces. I really don't like facing this skill since it's generally used in a flyer emblem team. It always messes me up in Aether raids. Speaking of messing things up, we have Fur's unique weapon, the Bun-Bun baton. Great name. Before we begin, I want to preface this by saying that I think this is a really good weapon. Why is that? Well, first off, 16 might axe, accelerate special trigger, and it's effective against armor units. Third effect is that it has no follow-up 3, neutralizes effects that guarantee the enemy's follow-up attacks, and neutralizes effects that prevent the user's follow-up attacks. Oh boy. Bun-bun baton is basically a huge middle finger to armor units. It has a very similar vibe to Byleth's Creator's Sword because, well, they both have no follow-up built in with accelerate specials. However, instead of messing up special charging skills, bun-bun baton has armor effectiveness. What this means is that not only does Fur not get stopped by wary fighter type skills, but she gets extra damage too. She will also screw up Vengeful and Bold Fighter by preventing their follow-up attacks, and that also applies to any units who rely on quick riposte in general. With her speed, getting her own follow-ups should be easy, and remember, flyers cannot even use no follow-up in the first place, so Spring Fur is already going to be unique. Sadly, she can't abuse all the crazy infantry B skills that Byleth can, but she still has some fun options. First off, Spring Fur can abuse the same wind or water sweep combo that Byleth can use. Essentially, the idea is that no follow-up cancels out the follow-up penalty from these skills, which means Fur can deny counterattacks while also doubling herself. She just needs to outspeed her opponent, and with 41 base speed and attacking speed solo, I think this should be easy. I made a whole video on this topic, I'll link it as a card if you want to learn more. Now, since bun-bun baton accelerates specials, Fur can also proc Moonbow while doing this. If you want to use her as a dragon specific counter with water sweep, you could steal Byleth's Ruptured Sky special instead. While the sweep build is fun, it will only work on either physical damage foes or magical damage foes, and armor units come in both varieties quite often. If you want to delete our regular Sword, Lancer, Axe armor units along with those nasty armored dragons, then Desperation is also available. Because of no follow-up, Fur cannot be stopped if she wins the speed battle, and if you use Desperation, you get to attack twice in a row. With armor effectiveness, hopefully that should be enough, and if they don't have a guard effect, either Moonbow or Glimmer can help finish the job. It's a shame that Spring Fur cannot use many other crazy B skills, but at least bun-bun baton is still pretty good. Accelerated specials plus no follow-up is awesome on a weapon, and adding armor effectiveness is a superb bonus. Fur is going to be an offensive flyer, and extra attack and speed is always nice for any of her builds. She would be even better if she could run Flashing Blade, but you're going to have to make Heavy Blade work, and it can work if you want to run something like Gale Force. Spring Fur is going to be a very cool unit and very unique. As a fun fact, if you visit her page on the Meet the Heroes website, her image files are literally titled Sword of Spring instead of her current Student of Spring moniker. It's pretty obvious from the way she holds her weapon and her very common Swordmaster stat line that Spring Fur was definitely supposed to be a sword user. Why did they change it to an axe? I don't know for sure, but from a gameplay perspective, it sure makes things a lot more interesting, even though she would have still been pretty good as a sword flyer too. Normally, I think Spring Fur would have had enough to be the star of this banner, but last on today's list is a true monster of a pair, Spring Duo Idunn Fae. As a fair warning, the following may be too much for some to view. May the Reinhardt save us all. Duo Idunn Fae are basically gonna be regular Idunn 2.0. They are an armored red dragon with 46 HP, 37 attack, 26 speed, 37 defense, and 38 resistance. 184 BST with super boons in both defense and resistance, because why not? If you're familiar with regular Idunn and how hard she can be to kill, well, things are not going to get any easier. For old skills, Duo Idunn has Iceberg, which is going to hurt a lot, and she has Vengeful Fighter to proc it every round possibly. Also comes with Gold Dragons to buff up dragon allies, and this is going to be important for later. Now for their weapon, this duo has Zephyr Breath. This is a disgusting weapon. 16 might, effective against armor foes, and grants a flat +3 resistance. That brings Idunn up to 41 resistance. Now if a bonus, aka a field buff, is active on Idunn, or if Idunn is within 2 spaces of an ally, she gets 3 effects. First, neutralize penalties. Second, inflict -6 attack on the enemy. Third, foe cannot make a follow-up attack. If you include the built-in ranged adaptive damage effect, Zephyr Breath technically has 6 different effects going on. Now, this weapon is similar to regular Idunn's weapon, but instead of a +4 stat boost, you inflict -6 attack on the enemy, and added on is the follow-up prevention. That alone is good enough for a weapon, since that's basically what Momori has, and that was already a better version of Legendary Hector's kit. This weapon is insane, and it has 2 very easy activation conditions. Just throw on Distant Counter, and it's going to be a slaughter. To make things crazier, Idunn Fae's dual skill has a range of 5 columns and 5 rows centered on them, and it grants +6 defense and res for 1 turn, and a status that neutralizes dragon and armor effectiveness bonuses. Holy cow. If you have to face a dragon killer or an armor slayer, you can just pop this dual skill and you have 1 turn to tank their attacks and maybe even kill them. This is an amazing effect if you want to run a dragon emblem team, an armor emblem team, or the coveted armor dragon emblem team. The +6 defense and res buff will also activate Zephyr Breath, so if Idunn Fae are alone for whatever reason, they can still get their bonuses. If you plan to run this duo in Aether Raids, maybe use the duels and dungeon structure as well. It lets you use dual skills twice in a battle, and this is definitely a good one to have multiple uses of. Now the one new skill that Duo Idunn Fae have is Sturdy Stance 3. If foe initiates combat, grants attack and defense +6 and inflict special cooldown charge -1 on the foe per attack. Another tier 3 dual stance that offers built-in guard. This is a really good one for any physical damage tanks. Like we mentioned earlier, Narcian would love this skill, and there are a few tanking flyers like Travant or Altena who would also like it. Very good A skill, a little sad that it's probably going to be locked to a limited unit for a long while. In general, Duo Idunn Fae is just gonna be a pain to fight. Lots of base stats, very tanky, and one of the best defensive weapons you could ask for. If you try to fight her with an armor unit, she also just gets extra damage. Now thankfully the AI cannot use dual skills, so she's not as invincible as when the player controls her. When you control Idunn, you have that turn to tank a dragon or armor killer, plus you can always just give those buffs to another dragon or armor unit. She's gonna be so good in the hands of the player. For her build, I would say her normal base kit is fine. Sturdy Stance 3 is a huge annoyance for any physical attackers, and you can just slap on this in defense to shrug off range attacks. If you want to be more of a menace, Distant Counter is a very obvious choice. It works well with Zephyr Breath and Vengeful Fighter. You can also use Special Fighter with Quick Riposte for a similar effect, and that can still get you guard. If you want to forgo DC for even more defensive stats, then Fortress Defense and Res 3 will be disgusting. Like honestly, if there is a merged Duo Idunn with Fortress Defense and Res 3 and a bunch of Ward Armor teammates, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be able to kill her unless I bring my best pure counters. If you use Idunn, definitely bring along some attack debuffs. Chill Attack on an ally, Attack Smoke, or Attack Ploy are all great because those field debuffs are going to stack with Zephyr Breath's in combat attack debuff, just a disturbing amount of tankiness. Now to kill this final boss, your best bet is to let her attack first. If she doesn't have Bold Fighter, Armor or Dragon Effectiveness is good as well since she can't use her dual skill as an AI. If you don't have either of those and it's a defense and res stacking enemy team, good luck. That wraps up this breakdown. Another 180 plus BST Armor Dragon is going to be fun to face, and we got a new fastest axe unit with another no follow-up weapon to boot. Pretty good selection of units if you are going to be summoning. For those saving orbs, we got a Tempest Trials coming up. Our reward unit is Spring Bartray, and he's bringing the muscle to the party. You're also not going to want to miss one of the new Sacred Seals on offer. We'll talk about that soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.